Unless you want me to be in talk.
Yeah, no, you're, hi, this is Jody Underhill. We're going to start the webcast, or the webinar in just a couple of minutes here. Just got to check a couple of things. We're lucky tonight to have with us Greta Schulz. And Greta, you are in go mode, so we can hear you whenever you talk.
Okay.
Great. And we have Eric, obviously, on the line as always. I'm sure he'll be interjecting as we go along.
Don't you worry about that.
Yep, I'm sure he'll be right there with us. Just like last time, we're going to go through the first section. We're going to be in presentation mode. We're going to go through and have Greta share some of the things with us that she talks to national audiences across the country. Greta is a nationally acclaimed sales trainer. She very often gives keynote speeches across the country. She's been known to train the majority of the business journals across the country. Is that right, Greta?
It is, yeah. The American City Business Journals, there's 44 of them across the country, and I've worked with, quite a few.
Very good. So we're going to go through, and today what Greta's going to talk about is that she's going to start off with some of the challenges that we find as business owners and as entrepreneurs whenever we go to talk to people and sell our services to them. And some of the challenges that she hears again and again as she goes around the country training, and go through those with us, and as well as share as a sales process that she's developed that will help you fill your sales funnel so that you have people, your funnel is always full and you always have someone to talk to next. Does that sound fair enough, Greta?
Sounds great.
Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off, it's going to be an overview. You can go ahead, Eric. We got Eric is at the controls tonight with the slideshow. Since we did it in Keynote and GoToWebinar doesn't like Max.
This is being recorded, right, Jody?
Exactly. It's being recorded. So we're going to talk about Greta's entire system is set up around a football theme. And it's set up like the sales process is set up like a football game. And so we have the pregame huddle. And that's sort of what tonight is. It's the pregame huddle. It's how to go about putting everything together for your business. And with that, we're going to do an overview. Let's go ahead and get to the slide with the objections, Eric.
Review.
All right.
With the challenges?
The challenges. And Greta, these are the challenges that you say that you hear again and again as you travel around the country?
I do. Hi, gang. If we had several hours to go through this, I could go through each of these challenges with you, but I think what might make sense is Jody and Eric explained to me a little bit about what most of you are trying to achieve. So what I thought we would do is, as you're looking at these challenges, I'm going to pick out 4 or 5 of them that I think are the most prevalent that I hear, period. But I think knowing your business a little bit that I'm somewhat familiar with what you're trying to accomplish, how I can help you there. The first one, which actually is number 1, if you look at our slides here, is getting think it over too often. What's interesting about that one is that's really the number 1 problem that we have in sales. And think it over comes in a lot of forms. Think it over comes in, I'll let you know, I'll call you back, can you send me something, can you send me a proposal, can you give me a referral, we don't have money right now, check with us in a month. I mean, I could go on, and I'm sure as I mentioned some of those, a lot of you have heard them. So think it over is a problem because it has no real substance. It's that gray area. So what happens is when we talk to somebody and they're not completely sure if they want to do business with us, they'll say, well, let me think it over. But most of the time, think it over means no. It looks prettier, but it actually is a no. So what's important to understand about think it over, and as we talk a little bit tonight, I'll address that further, is that think it over is something that you do not want in sales. So what you want to make sure that you do is you want to give people an option. You actually want to give them one of 3 options every time you speak to them. And this is something that I want you to keep in mind as we go through this tonight. Number 1, a positive result is a yes. Obviously, you know that. You want to get a yes. You want to get money. The second result you'd like to get is what we call a clear next step, which is moving the process along. It's got a date, it's got a time, and then it's got an agenda of something that you're going to do in your next appointment, whether it's on the phone or in person. The third most positive thing you can get is a no. One of the reasons we get think it over is because we don't give no as an option. So I will talk about that a little bit further tonight, but I just want to let you know if that is the number 1 thing. That will hurt you in sales much more than a no. The second one I want to talk about is, if you look at number 5, difficulty with actually closing the sale. You know, it's interesting. I talk to some people in different businesses around the country, and they'll say something to me like, you know, Greta, I'm pretty good at selling. It's just that the actual close. I want to actually get better at closing the sale. Can you give me some kind of language or terms or something that'll really close the sale? And I want to laugh, but I don't do that out loud because I guess it would be rude. But closing the sale happens from the very beginning. When you are talking to somebody about your services, if you're talking to them about offering social networking, what you want to do is from the very beginning, you're going to set down some ground rules of what the appointment's going to be about. You're going to ask really good questions. I mean, there's a certain process along the way. And every step along the way, you are moving forward or aborting. Either you abort from the sale because for whatever reason it's not a fit, or you clearly move to a next step. So the closing doesn't happen at the end of the sale. The close happens as you move through the sale. So every step is closing to the next one. And as we talk about some ideas for process today, I'll include that. The next one I want to talk about is number 14, which is difficulty with asking questions. You know, such an interesting business you're in today. People really don't understand social media all that well. So we find it important to explain to them what we do. So when somebody says to you, or they say, what do you do? And you say, well, I help people in social media, or I'm a social media expert. Nobody really knows what that means today. So when they ask you what that means, we immediately go into tell mode. Well, what we do is we help you get your name out there on the web, and we can help you with, you know, with Twitter, we can help you with, you know, so you go into the mode of telling. And because of the business you're in, I imagine you fall into that trap a lot. It's very important to make sure that you turn the conversation around and you ask questions first, because people make decisions on how much you know by the questions you ask them. And what's even more important than that is when you start asking them about what some of their experiences are, what they do now, what do they think having a presence on the web might do for them. I mean, when you come up with some good questions to ask, it really allows them to tell you all about their situation. So when you do ask good questions, at the end, if you do decide that they're potentially a good prospect for you, you have the opportunity to say, from what you said earlier, if you had an opportunity to do this, this, and this through social media, you felt like it would help you this much. Let me explain to you how I can help you do that. So it's very important to ask questions and learn their situation and learn what I affectionately call pain, which is really their needs, their wants, what they're looking to do. That's their hot buttons. What you want to do is learn those things, and you don't learn them by telling what you do. You learn by asking questions. Next, go ahead, Jody.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that's so key, because one of the things that happens, and I mean, I catch myself in it, and I got to tell you, I trained with Greta for a couple of years. So the reason I have her on this call is because everything that I know and that I've learned about how to sell, I learned from Greta. And with social media, because there are so many nuances and there's so many different aspects about what we do that people don't get, especially the local businesses sometimes that we're speaking to. It really is a challenge, especially coming off of a great event like we did a couple of weeks ago, where we have so much information. We want to just go out there, we just spray it out there because we're bubbling over with the information. And it's really one of the things that we have to do is kind of rein ourselves in. And one of the things that I do, and I really haven't talked about this anywhere else, but I'm going to talk about it now, is that as I write at the top of my page, of course I have these nice consultation notes that Greta gave me, I write across the top of the page WAIT, which obviously spells wait, but what it actually is an acronym for is why am I talking? So when I put that at the top of the page, and when I hear myself talking too much, I look at that, it reminds me, get out of the tell mode and go back to the asking mode, because even though when we do that, we have to tell them because they don't understand it, but we can really tell the story through the questions that we ask. And the one that I like the most is what would a first page Google ranking do for your business? And what that does is starts to build the value and gets them selling it back to you, which I know you're going to talk about in a little bit, but I just want to say that asking questions is key. And I don't know what Eric just did, but we lost the... Give him one thing to do. Yeah, stop answering questions and do the keynote. There you go. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greta. Go with the next one. I had to throw that in there because I hadn't talked about that, and I wanted to.
No, and it's really important. I mean, knowing the businesses that you guys are in, it's imperative. There are some businesses that will fall into this trap more often than others. Because you are in such a neat business, everybody wants to know about you and how you do it and what you do and how do you get your ranking up. They want to know those things, so they're going to hit you with a bunch of questions. And our temptation is, let me tell them all the things that I know so they find out how smart I am. People don't buy from you because they're smart. They buy from you because if you have a really good understanding of what they need, then they believe that you can match those things up to what they need and what you can provide. So it's very important not to fall into that trap, and in your business that's something that could happen pretty easily. The next thing is number 16, which is making too many bids and proposals that don't turn into sales. One of the things that we do when we talk to a potential new prospect is they'll say to us, well, everything sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and give me a proposal and let me look at it? And, you know, it's so amazing to me when I talk to salespeople or, you know, entrepreneurs that are wearing the sales hat, and they'll say, oh, they want a proposal from me. Really, the translation of that is, they've just allowed me to do work for free. Yay! You know, being able to do a bid or a proposal isn't a plus unless they have qualified to have it. So it's very important that if you're going to give a proposal to somebody, there is no surprises in it. Here's what I mean. You have to understand what their issues are, and if you have the ability to solve them, you have to understand the amount of money in general that you think you would have to charge for this service, even if it's a range of dollars that you say, here's from what you said what I think it's going to be. They have to be okay with that. They have to be some level of decision maker, or you have to know what the decision process clearly is, and you have to know that if you bring a proposal in and they look at it and they really like it, what happens next? So we have to not fall into the trap of getting proposals out there too soon. It's a danger when what we typically do is go in, ask a couple of questions, tell a bunch of stuff. They say, sounds good, put it in a proposal. Then what we do in our proposal often is give away a lot of our information. So we do have to be very careful about that one as well. The last one I'm going to bring up today, because we certainly don't have time to go through anymore, is number 22, which is networking without a system. And I'm assuming that Jody has talked to you about networking, and I know his job with you is slightly different, but I've known Jody and Eric now for several years, and Jody is quite a networker in the community, and I think most of his business is through networking. What's interesting is, because you are in the business of business on the web and through your computer as opposed to person, we assume that's how we market. But truly, you're marketing to people that want to be able to have more of a presence, and unfortunately, they don't understand that yet or aren't as sophisticated as you might be, so that they're not out there looking for you. They're externally looking for you. So most of your business, at least to start, it's going to be in your community. And when I say community, it may not just be the community of, I don't know, Los Angeles, California. It may not be just geographic community. It could be the community of, maybe you specialize in attorneys or CPAs or whatever. So when I say community, it doesn't necessarily mean a geographic community, though it could. But networking is something that you need to do on purpose. And the interesting part about networking is when you network, when you go to a networking function, your job when you're there is not to sell. Let me repeat that. Your job when you're at a networking function, whether it's a chamber of commerce or whatever it is not to sell. Your job as you walk around and talk to people at a networking function is to ask questions of them, find out about what they do, how they do it, what they like about it, and what a good referral for them might be, so you can help them connect with other people. what you want to be in your community is a connector. When you're a connector, people look at you as one of those people that everybody wants to be a part of. You become the mover and shaker in your community, and that's what you want to be. The other thing we haven't talked about necessarily tonight, and it's not really on here, but for you, I know in our geographic community here, Upside Down Iceberg is very, very well known. And one of the reasons for that is they got out there early on and really not only networked very, very well, they did a lot of speaking engagements. So for you guys that have this business, people are absolutely dying to hear information about social media and social networking. They need to understand what that's about. So if you're comfortable in front of a room, you need to be able to set up some of those conferences where you can have maybe, even if it's a 20-minute, half an hour, and maybe you get up to an hour conversation where you can get up in front of a room and give some ideas and give some thoughts. And there's an actual process to doing that, but that makes you an expert very quickly. Then if you give some good information, not too much information, but good information away so people see you as an expert and give them some tips, you want to leave them wanting more. When they want more, then they come to you for that because they're the expert. So networking is two different sides for you. It's getting out in your community, learning who's out there, learning who the movers and shakers are in your community, and becoming one of them. It is also networking to get speaking engagements where you can speak on some of these groups, to give people some tips, to be the expert, and then you can collect their business cards and follow up, and there's a whole process with that. That's a very, very important way for you guys to be building your business because of the type of business you have. So you've got a window right now. So if you have the ability to do that, this is the time.
Yeah, I have to say that that's one of and most of the people that are on this call either have heard us talk about it before or either they saw us at the event that we were at in San Diego, and that's one of the main things that we talked about in building our business was the speaking engagements. And you don't have to be perfect at it. It's one of those things that you just get up there, you do it, you know more than anyone else in the room does because of the information that you have in hand. So that's one of the best ways to get out there and do it. Matter of fact, last week I think Brian Williams was on the Facebook chat with for the Main Street Marketing Program coming out, and someone said, how do you build a six-figure business? And he said, 3 ways. Speaking engagements, speaking engagements, speaking engagements. It's a great way to get out there and do that. So
it truly is, and again, if you're in the insurance business, you may not get invited as often for some. Oh, I'm in insurance. Oh, yes, come to our meeting and talk to us about insurance. Yawn. But the business you're in is a very exciting business, and it's ever changing and moving, and new stuff's happening all the time. It's very, very exciting. So for you, if you put together, do some homework and put together a little talk and organize it, and actually I'm sure Jody and Eric would be happy to help you with that because they've done an amazing job at doing that. But truly, that is a great way for you to build your business because of what you do for a living.
Were you trying to say something, Eric? You're really muted.
Oh, okay. Nope. I was just making some comments, shockingly enough.
Oh, good. You need to speak up when you do because we can barely hear you.
Is that better?
That's better.
All right, there you go.
Well, I don't know if it's better or worse, Eric, but we can hear you. It depends on what you're going to say.
Let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
Let's do it.
You got to love the time delay here. All right, the psychology of selling.
So let's talk a little bit about that first. One of the things you guys need to understand when you think about selling is that we often think about selling as the exchange of information. Is when you tell, you're selling, and that's not at all what it is. Selling is truly about the psychology of people. So let's address a couple of these things. The first one is it's a gut thing. Decisions are made with the heart and the gut, not the head. What I mean by that is people make decisions for their very own reasons. In their gut, they decide they're going to work with you for whatever reason they're going to. And the problem is when we decide, oh, we know what our advantages are, we know what our benefits are, and we're going to tell people what that is, you're often going to be wrong because you're stabbing in the dark. So people make decisions for their very own reasons. What you need to do is ask enough questions and learn about how they make decisions. If you ask enough good questions, not only will you find out what's important to them, how they want to grow their business, what their presence on the web would like to be, you will also find out how they make decisions and what type of personality they are. There's a lot of things that you'll learn. So by sitting back and asking questions and listening, that's the important piece there. The next thing I say here is tell it like it is. Decision makers hire sales professionals that they trust. Traditional sales often destroys that. So what I mean by that is if you are looked at as a traditional salesperson, if you are doing anything another salesperson would do, if you walk or talk or act or smell like a salesperson, you will be treated like one. So what you want to do, if you need to be seen as an equal partner or a professional, the only way to do that is to be very honest. And I don't mean that by, oh, you have to be an honest person. I mean, that's so basic, I don't even want to talk about that. But what I do mean, tell it like it is. Here's an example. If somebody says to me, Greta, why should I hire your training company? You know what I tell them? I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't. And the reason I say that is I don't know that answer yet. And when I say that, it immediately stops them and they look and think, wow, she's not trying to sell me. So what I say is, honestly, I'm not sure yet. I don't know enough about your company. I don't know enough about your organization. I don't know what your issues are. So what I think might make sense is why don't we spend a little time. I'll ask you some questions about what some of your issues are, your challenges, why you're looking to engage in this. I'm sure you'll have questions for me about how I might be able to help. At the end of our few minutes, we will figure out a couple of things. Number one, we will figure out that what you're looking for and what I'm looking for may not be a fit, and that's okay. What we do isn't for everybody. Or we'll figure out that it might be a fit, and if it is, then we'll figure out what our next steps are. What do you think? So that is, what I call ground rules, but that's telling it like it is, and it's being very honest and very upfront. Well, why do you do that? Again, you want to look different than every other salesperson, and as soon as you look desperate, they treat you as if you're desperate, and they can smell it. So you need to act as if you have something truly special. Then you want to make the decision to see if they qualify for you as much as you qualify for them. And in the business you're in, it's perfect for that. Because honestly, you really can't help everybody. Some people have unrealistic expectations. There's all sorts of things that people don't understand about your business. So if you're not clear on exactly what that means and that at the end of the conversation it may turn out to be a no, if you're not clear about that, you can get yourself in a bad place. Plus, you really elevate yourself as a professional as opposed to a salesperson when you do that. The third thing is if you teach people how to treat you. Along the same lines of what I was just talking about, sales resistance is not a natural part of the way people are with salespeople. It's a product of how we behave. If you act like a salesperson, you will be treated like one. So once you engage with somebody and set some ground rules, kind of like I did in that little last segment there, and then ask some questions, you're going to act differently than another salesperson and you will be treated like one. So if you act differently, if you act as a consultant and a partner and somebody you want to help their business grow with, then you'll be treated like one. If you act like someone who's a salesperson, like, well, we've got some great ideas and we can really help you, we can rise your rankings in Google, if it's great. If you do that, you are a salesperson. And what happens here is because you guys are so passionate about what you do, which you should be, but because of that, we often fall into the trap of getting so excited and enthusiastically telling somebody how we can help them. As soon as you do that, you put the sales hat on. So you have to teach people how to treat you by acting as if you're a partner and a consultant and not a salesperson. So today we're going to talk about having a process for selling. When you have a process for selling, you always want to have one of the three following outcomes. And each of these potential outcomes are all positive. So every time you get off the phone with somebody or you walk away from a meeting, you should have one of these results, and they're all positive. The first one, obviously, is a yes. A yes is, yes, I want to do business with you, send me a contract, here's a check. Anything to do with a solid yes, obviously that's the best thing that you get. If you don't get a yes, the next best thing you have is what I call a clear next step. A clear next step has 3 pieces to it. It has a date of when you're going to follow up, it has a time of when you're going to follow up, and it has an agenda of what you're going to do when you do follow up. So a clear next step, do not misunderstand it as call me next week, send me something, call me in a few weeks, I'll call you back. That's not a clear next step. A clear next step specifically has a date, a time, and what's going to happen on your next appointment, whether that's on the phone or in person. If you don't get a yes and you don't get a clear next step, there is one other option, and it is also positive. That option is a no. Greta, how can a no be positive? A no is positive because if you don't get a no, then you are going to be in that think it over hell. Like what we talked about earlier when we first started today, the number one challenge we have is getting think it over. So not only do you need to think of no as a positive, you actually need to put no out there as an option. You have to let people know that at the end of this conversation, if we decide that this is not going to work, if we decide that it's a no because it's not a fit for everybody, that's okay. You actually need to say that, because when you tell somebody it's okay to say no, when they try to give you a think it over at the end, you go back to, gosh, we talked about if this wasn't going to be a fit, we talked about moving to a no, so why don't we go ahead and do that? Most of the time when you do that, people are either going to say, okay, you're right, which most people don't, by the way, but if they do, at least you're not wasting time. What most people say is, wait a minute, it's not a no, but here's my concern. And you get what truly is going on. So if you don't put no out there as an option, you're going to get no, and you're going to get it in a lot of other forms, like I'll let you know, I'll think about it, I'll call you, you call me, if I'll let you know when we have budget, you know the excuses. If you don't put no out there, you're going to get an excuse. So if you don't have one of these 3 answers, let's go to the next slide, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. If you don't get one of those 3, which those 3 are all positive, then you're not following your own system. What happens then is you're following somebody else's system. So I want you to write these 4 things down. If you're taking notes, write these down, okay? Lie, steal, cheat, and vanish. So let's talk about what that means for a minute. So I'm going to pick on somebody out there. I don't have anybody's name. So let's say there's somebody out there named Bob. So I say, you know what, Bob? I have seen you speak a couple of times, or you've come by my office. We're looking at getting involved in social media. I mean, I have somebody in my office who does marketing, but she's not really an expert, so we'd like to talk to you. There's the lie, by the way. So you make an appointment and you go in and see this person, and they say, okay, Bob, here's what Susie is doing. She's tweeting every day, and she's going on Facebook, and she's putting this on. And so he tells you all the things that they're doing now. And you go through it and you say, well, first of all, it's okay to tweet every day, but you need to make sure you're doing something that makes sense. Oh, and going on Facebook, here's the kind of things you should do. The other thing you should do is there's a couple of great websites out there that really can help your ranking, and you're giving all this information away. That word steal is often interchanged with free consulting. We give so much information away because we're excited about what we do, because people are so curious about it. You have a real golden nugget there. You got to hold on to it. So they ask a whole bunch of questions to us, and the only thing they're really saying is, slow down, Bob, we're taking notes. So the next thing they say to you is, Bob, everything you've said sounds really good. What we'd like you to do is we'd like you to take all the things that you just recommended to us, and anything else you think might be good for us to do, and put it in writing. Put it in a proposal and send it to us, because we're really interested in what you have to say. I think we're really going to engage with you. So you're really excited. If you run back to your office, if you put a bang-up proposal together with all sorts of ideas and what websites you're going to put them on and how you're going to build their ranking, and you've got all sorts of great ideas for them, and you give it to them, and they look at it and they go, this looks great. You know what, Bob? We're going to get back to you. So they take all that information, and they do get back to you. And they call you and say, you know, Bob, we've been looking at your proposal. It looks really good. We love your ideas, but gosh, can you sharpen the pencil just a little bit? And you say, well, I could do this, I could do that. When you shave a few dollars off of it, and they say, okay, we're going to look at this, and we'll let you know. And then that vanish thing starts happening. If you are in voicemail, email, secretary, black hole, and you can't find them anymore, they don't return your calls, they don't return your emails, and you don't know what happened. So a couple of months down the road, you hear that Susie, who's working for them, not only is still working for them, she is also doing all the things that you recommended in your proposal, and she's now learned how to do them on her own, and she's doing them with the same money that she was making before. So that's what typically happens. The reason it says on the top here, does this sound familiar? If I could hear you guys, I bet you would all tell me it would. Because this is the process that your prospects use. Why do they use it? Because we let them. And it works very well. They get all sorts of free information. They work with you or a competitor of yours, or they take it internal and have somebody internal do it. Now, can they do as good of a job as you? Of course not. But you've given away a whole bunch of information to at least get them started. So the only way you're going to fight against this is to have your own process. So let's take some time and go through some of these steps so you can understand how to engage this process and fight against this.
Can we have the next slide, Eric?
Fine, too.
Okay, so there's 5 things that we want to address here today. The first step in everything that you do when you are selling, the first thing you have to do is you have to have a plan for prospecting. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing prospecting-wise. Then here's what's important. What we typically do when it comes to prospecting is you make a few calls, or you talk to a few people, or you ask for a few referrals, or maybe you are doing some networking, and then you get a couple of people that are interested. And what we do then is we say, okay, good, I got some people who are interested. I'm going to work on their proposals, and now I don't have to prospect anymore. And then you work on their proposals, or whatever it is you do, a bid or whatever. You work on a few of those. You win a couple, you lose a couple. You work on the few that you won, and then you look back out and say, uh-oh, I got nothing else on the horizon. Then you run back out and you do whatever it is to prospect again. So you get that squiggly line that goes up and down and up and down, and that's how your business goes, and that's how your money goes. So it's very important to figure out what your prospecting plan is. What I would recommend that you do is figure out a marketing plan, like a mix of what you want to do when it comes to prospecting. For example, if you're going to network, you need to make sure that you figure out where you're going to network, whether it's Chamber of Commerce, whether it's, some sort of a trade organization, whether it's a charity, whether it's a leads group. There's a whole bunch of things out there to do. You need to figure out, or maybe you do cold call, or maybe you send things out. Whatever you're going to do, you need to figure out what your goal is on each of those, and that has to be your goal over everything else, even over meeting with your clients. Let me repeat that. When you figure out what your prospecting goal is, that goal is #1 even over a meeting with a client. Let me give you an example. What typically happens is you say, all right, I heard this chick, Greta, and I've listened to Jody and Eric talk to me about how they've had success networking in the community. So you decide you're going to go to a luncheon at the Chamber of Commerce. So you have that luncheon tomorrow afternoon at noon. You get a call at 10 o'clock in the morning that it's somebody you met a couple of months ago, and they said, hey, I remember you did a talk, or I met you, or I had a business card. We're thinking of maybe doing some social networking. I think we need to do something in our organization, some social media. Can you come over today? And you drop everything and you run. Now, I understand that that may be important, but number one, if you run over there and drop everything, you have now put their business on front of growing yours, because you need to make sure that the networking that you do is first and foremost. Whatever you set as prospecting goes before that. So what you want to say to that person is, absolutely, certainly we'll meet, and then you look at your calendar and say, here's the times and days I have available, or can we do it after, this afternoon, maybe at 2 o'clock. You have to work around your own schedule whenever possible. If you don't, then you're not proactively working, you're reactively working. So figure out what the mix of things you're going to do when it comes to prospecting. You're going to make calls to try to set up talks at different organizations. You're going to network. You're going to build alliances in the community of similar businesses to yours, maybe a web designer if you don't do that, maybe somebody who is a marketing person who doesn't do social media. Come up with people in the community that have the ability to recommend you, and you can recommend them. We call them strategic alliances. You want to make sure that you're setting those things up. So look at your calendar and make sure that all the things you decide you want to do to prospect, you're calendaring those things out, and nobody gets that time.
A sales trainer is a really good strategic alliance.
Sales trainer is a really good strategic alliance. That's very true. So that's what you want to do when it comes to prospecting. So that's the first step. No matter what, no matter how good you are at closing the sale, if you're not prospecting on a regular basis, you're going to fail. Before I touch pre-qualification, the last thing I want to say on prospecting is, right now, I don't know where you guys are in your businesses. I imagine some of you are fairly new and some of you have been doing this a while. If you don't have a lot of clients at this point, you want to really build up that prospecting. And once you get some clients, you can tweak your prospecting goals, but don't let them go away. You have to prospect all the time. It doesn't matter how busy you are. I don't care if you can't even fit one more client. Then you go out and prospect less, but you don't stop. I can't tell you how important that is.
Yeah, we got caught into that. We filled up our slate and we're like, oh, we got all this business. We don't have to do anything. We got a video out there. People call us from the internet, and we'd stop, and all of a sudden we'd have not as much business anymore, and we'd have to go start the wheel again. And the one thing that happens when you're not networking is you become conspicuously absent. And when you show up, it's all about, hey, you've been gone. And it's like if you do at least one thing a week, just continue to stay out there, stay in the loop, then that doesn't happen, and you'll be surprised how the wheel just keeps turning for you. So yeah, we learned that one the hard way.
Yeah, it really is true. And what's interesting about that is what you're teaching people is to be seen on the web, to do different things, to put articles out there. But you're teaching them to be seen all the time, so they become something that's known, that raises their ranking. That's what you're teaching them. That's what you have to do. You have to be out in your community, and people have to see you. They have to hear you. They have to learn from you. That's what that is. So you can't stop that.
I push the button?
Yes.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to talk about is pre-qualification, a pre-qualification call. When you do get somebody on the phone, it is very important to pre-qualify them before you run across town to see them. There's a couple of reasons for that. When you pre-qualify a phone call, pre-qualify an appointment before you go there, you typically do that on the phone. Well, what does it do for you? First, it allows you not to waste a bunch of time. Second, it keeps you in control of understanding what their issues are. So when you do go there, you know you're prepared for exactly what you are going to talk about. And I think most importantly, when you pre-qualify that person, they have to earn the right for you to come see them.
Can I interject for a second?
Absolutely.
This is probably the single. You have a couple single best things, by the way. But this is one of the best things that you have. This, if you want to this is as far as saving time and energy and money and cost-effective use of 5 minutes of one's time. If I could type here, this would get an asterisk. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Well, I appreciate that, Eric.
There you go,
I think you're absolutely right. And I think one of the most important reasons for that is all the things you mentioned. If you don't waste time, all of those things. The most important reason is psychological. That person has to qualify for you to see them. And you have to ask them questions to get them to qualify. So that's a pretty cool thing. When you ask some questions and then you say, well, from what you said, it does sound like you've got something that we can help you with. What do you think? And then they say either yeah or it doesn't. But if they say, yeah, I think it makes sense, now they've invited you in. Now they've decided they want to see you. So you don't get cancellations. You don't show up where they say, okay, tell me what you do, or tell me who you've worked with, or what can you do for us? You don't get that. So it's all those things. And honestly, I don't care if the person is across the street from you in that building. You do a pre-qualification phone call because you have to, the perception is you're going to see if their value is high enough to get your time. So it's a psychological thing. It's very, very important. It also allows you not to waste time. The third thing is your actual appointment, which is your what I call the interview. And I call that the interview because when we think about an appointment, we often still think about going in and what I affectionately call show up and throw up. Okay? I don't want you to show up and throw up. What you need to do is you need to go to that appointment with setting some ground rules, which is, hey, we spoke on the phone. Here, let's go ahead and review that. Here's what I want to do today. By the end of today, here's what I'd like to accomplish. So you set that out, and then you interview them, and you ask them some good questions. Talk to me about your organization. And these are questions you wouldn't have asked on pre-qual. On pre-qual, you know, what prompted the phone call? What are the kind of things you're trying to achieve? What have you done so far? On this appointment, when you're in front of them, or maybe it's still on the phone, but it's a longer appointment, you're going to ask what I call big picture questions. You're going to ask questions like, tell me your overall marketing strategy of your organization. What is the image of your company? Because that's the image that you want it to be. Tell me about your competition. You know, are they on the web, and what are they doing? What's the reason you're doing this? What does success look like to you? For example, if we work together and you look 6 months or 12 months down the road and you say, Bob, this was a very successful relationship, what does that look like? So these questions you're going to ask here are going to be a little bit more in depth, a little bit more 10,000-foot view of their organization. And they should be marketing questions because what you are is a marketing consultant. You may be consulting, excuse me, you may be helping them with marketing through social media, but to them, it's about marketing their business. So you have to ask good, open marketing questions to understand their overall philosophies and beliefs and what they're trying to portray with their business. So when you put together your ideas, it's in sync with that. The other reason you ask all those questions is because the more you get them talking and the more they are telling you about what their goals and dreams and achievements are, the more they are beginning to buy. People buy because they are engaged in a conversation. They begin to see themselves at that point. So one of the questions Jody put out earlier, which is an excellent question, which is, what would it do for you if you moved up in the ranking in Google? If you were number one when you put in your particular category, what would that mean to you? When you get somebody thinking like that, you've got their thoughts going. You've got the wheels turning in their head, and that's what you want to do here. If you don't necessarily want to start with questions like, tell me what you're doing now for social media. What's your budget on that? What are you doing? You don't want to ask questions that are important to you. You want to ask questions that are important to them. What are they doing? What's important to them? What do they want to achieve? Because those are the things they care about. And when you ask thought-provoking questions about what they're interested in, they're in. You got them. Okay? So at that appointment, once you understand what some of those hot buttons are, if you want to really understand them in depth, once you do, you summarize those things, and then you want to have a conversation here about money. One of the problems that we have, one of the mistakes that people that are in sales make, is we don't have a conversation about money soon enough. So what we do is, if we ask some questions, if we understand basically what the person wants, or they tell us, here's what I want, if we walk away, if we put a bang-up proposal together, if we put a budget in there, if we come back and they look at your wonderful proposal, they turn right to the back where the money is, and now they're stymied. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to cost that much. Now all the wonderful work you did on presenting ideas, now all you have to do is justify the money. So what you want to do is, once you understand what their hot buttons are, you ask good questions and summarize those things, then you want to ask a question like, do you have a budget set aside for this part of your marketing? The answer is going to be one of three all the time. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Or, yes, I do, but I'm not sharing it with you. If they say yes, they have a budget, which is going to be your rarest answer, by the way, ask them to share that with you. But most of the time, they're going to say, no, they don't have a budget. So if they say they don't have a budget, you want to ask them, okay, so how would you like to proceed? And most of the time, they're going to say, well, can you tell me how much it is? So in this appointment, you have to have asked enough questions about their business, about what they're trying to achieve, so you in your head have an idea of what you're going to recommend. And you can say to them, from what you've said so far, you're probably going to be between, I don't know, $5,000 and $6,000, you know, $1,000 to $2,000 a month for 6 months. I have no idea, okay? But my point is, you have to be able to give them some sort of a range of dollars for a couple of reasons. Number one, you've got to take their temperature. You've got to see where they are on money. They may say, oh my God, I thought this whole thing was going to cost $500. Okay, good thing you know that now. They may say, well, that makes sense. Or they may say, well, how long is that? If you'll have a conversation here about money, it's very important to have this conversation. You don't have to get down to exact dollars, but you have to have a general conversation about where you're talking about with money. Because remember I told you earlier on, every step in the process, if you close one door and then you move closer to the end where you're going to get it signed, well, this is one of them. And if you can't come together on some sort of dollars, then you don't even need to go further. You'll abort right here. Or maybe their budget is less than you originally wanted to propose to them, so then you can do what I call, you can do it in stages. You can say, okay, well, the things that I was going to recommend to you is a much different budget than that. What do you recommend that we do? And they may come back with, well, I have more money, or they may come back with, well, that's all I really have. Okay, well, here's what seems to be the most important to you. Why don't I set this in stages? Why don't we the first quarter utilize that money and we can do this, this, and this. And then second quarter we can input this. So there's lots of ways of doing that, but you don't want to do it at the very end when you're at your presentation. The other thing you want to accomplish in your appointment is at the end of your conversation, when you know what their hot buttons are, when you know you can solve them, if you had a conversation about money and everybody's comfortable with what that means, the next thing you want to say is, so if I can come back with some ideas from you, if I come back with some ideas for you and I put them in a proposal, when you look at that proposal and you really think it makes sense and you really like it, what happens next? It's very important for you to understand that, because if you don't understand that, that's where you'll get into the give them a proposal, they say, we'll get back to you, and then you do that follow-up, 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 and you call them every other day. Hey, have you looked at it yet? Hey, have you made a decision? And I know a lot of people call that follow-up. I call that stalking. Okay, so if you are working as partners and as true consultants, you will come to the natural place where you can ask, if I put all this together and I come back to you and you like it, what happens next? It's a very important question to ask. Don't be afraid to ask it, because you're running a business like they are. Once you do that, your next step is what I call the follow-up email. Follow-up email is not just, hey, thanks, it was really nice meeting you. The follow-up email is, at your appointment, when you summarized everything that you talked about at the end, and you set your clear next step, unless you aborted here, okay? If you didn't and you are moving forward, what you want to put in your follow-up email is just what you summarized in the appointment. Bob, thanks so much for the opportunity to meet today. I wanted to recap our conversation. One of the things that was important to you was to pick up your ranking in Google, because if you're on page 4 and if you really don't get any phone calls and you feel like if you could do that, it would really help build your business, and you felt, you said the average dollar business for you is $10,000. So if you could even get 2 more accounts a month or a quarter, that would increase your business by such and such. The other thing you said was you have a product that nobody really knows about, and you really want to get people to understand it, and you said if they could do that, this would happen. My point is your follow-up email is a recap of what they said was important, not what you're going to sell to them for, what they said was important. The next thing is, Bob, we talked about the cost of moving forward would be between this and this, and you said that was fine as long as the recommendations made sense to you. You also said if I bring you a proposal next Tuesday at 3 o'clock and I present it to you and you like it, you and your partner Steve will be there, and the two of you will be able to make a decision one way or the other at the end of that meeting. If any of the above is incorrect, please let me know. If not, I will see you Tuesday at 3. So your follow-up email is merely a recap of what you talked about, of what they said, of what their issues were, and what the commitments you both made in moving forward were. It's very important to have it in an email because then it becomes in writing, it becomes more serious, it's also extremely professional.
I'd like to, yeah,
go ahead, Joe.
With that follow-up email, it's one of those things that you don't put it together in 5 minutes. A lot of times, because we use the one-page proposal template that's in the coaching, it's on the coaching website that we have. That takes about 10 minutes to fill out. The follow-up email, I craft a different one each time, but I use a template to do that. And I use a template that's been very successful. I've sent a follow-up email before that people, as soon as they read it, pick up the phone and call and go, this is fantastic, when can we get started? And I also get comments of, I really like your email, the way you follow up and recap everything, you're very good at that. And I've learned a lot of stuff from Greta, but the follow-up email is one of those things that very few people do. Most people just say, here's your proposal, all the details are inside, I'll give you a call in a couple of days. Right. The follow-up email goes through and recaps everything, and the important thing is you're putting back to them the things that they said. And whenever you're reminding them of what they said, they're hearing their own voice again, and it reframes them and puts them back in that state that they were in whenever they were telling you that in the meeting. And it's so powerful. I have to say that, I mean, and a lot of times I'm like, oh man, I don't want to spend the time, I don't want to spend 45 minutes putting together this follow-up email. But the times that I don't put the time in seems to be the ones that I get less business from. When I really put the time in and recap it and really revoice it the way they said things, it almost always closes. So that follow-up email is more important than the proposal. So I just say I can't, and also what I'm going to do, it'll probably be tomorrow morning, I'll upload several of the follow-up emails or actual emails that I sent to clients. Of course, I'll take the names out to protect the innocent or the guilty or however you look at it, but I'll put those templates in there so that you can see exactly what the emails that I write look like, because we're all in the same business, and you should be able to take those and just change the things that I put in there so that it fits what you're proposing to the client.
Yeah, and I think that's hugely important, and I'm going to tell you as well, I've done this for a long time, and I know how important it is, and let me tell you something. Every time I get back to my office and I have to do a recap email, a follow-up email, especially when I've had a really detailed, long conversation, and especially when I'm talking to a person who's very detailed and likes things, likes their T's crossed and their I's dotted, believe me, I'm painfully getting through it as well. I mean, I would rather just skip that part. I truly would. But if you do, you're going to hurt yourself in the end. It's a very important piece. So take good notes when you're in front of somebody, summarize it, and then when you get back, take some time and do it. Make sure, and I know this should go unsaid, but it happens all the time, make sure you spell check and grammar check before you send that. That is a huge impression. It's the first thing you're putting on front of them because they don't have a proposal yet. So make sure that you do that. The last step is your actual recommendation. And the reason recommendation is your last step is because your proposal or your whatever it is that you do, it's the very last thing is to recommend. And I know we tend to ask a few questions and jump to this. That's why most of us have problems. If you don't go through all the other steps and you do this without all the other steps, that's where you get, think it over, I'll let you know, I'll call you, all the other stuff. So the recommendation is what you want to do when you start that meeting is, and you can even use your follow-up email. You can say, hey, I want to review the things that we've talked about previously. Here's what you said was important. Here's what we agreed on dollar-wise, and here's what we said would happen at the end of of our presentation today. Has any of that changed? And then, if none of it's changed, then you can go and recommend. Because now you've checked again that if they like it, the next steps are going to happen. So you want to do that at the beginning of your meeting. And then you're going to go through what you recommend doing. Here's the problem, and you're going to run into it in your business. You have so many cool things that you can tell them about, but the more information you give them, the more you're forcing them to go away and think about it. So what you want to do is match up. Here's what you said was important. Here's what I'm recommending you do to solve that. Here's what you said was important. Here's what I'm going to recommend that we do to solve that. So you want to match up the things that they said are important, whether it's Google ranking, whether it's getting their name out there, whether it's making videos, whatever it is, whatever they said, and the reason they want those, you want to match up your recommendations to match up with that. So that's an important piece on your recommendation, but I will tell you, the less is more on your recommendation. And if you've gotten this far, you have a pretty darn good chance of closing it, because every step you've done before this has gotten you closer and closer and closer. So unless you get into your recommendation and you absolutely blow it and recommend things that are out of this world, you're going to close this, because every step along the way has gotten you there. In your follow-up email, usually what will happen is they'll email you back and say, looks good, or you're right, or I agree. When they do that, this thing is done. So your recommendation is important, but don't kill yourself on making a really big, thick recommendation. I know Jody talked earlier about a 1 or maybe 2-page proposal. That's all you need, because the more information you give them, the more you force them to go away and think about it.
It's a 1-page proposal. It's not one letter more than 1 page. And it's
yeah,
not
okay, good.
It is. It's a
good. Good, and I think that's very important. You know, we think that we're going to sell somebody at the end. You've sold them all the way through, and if you do it right, your recommendation is just the icing on the cake that's already been baked. So I'd love to open up this questions. I don't know if we can do that.
I think we have one more slide. But yeah, we can open it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we do have one more slide. You know, you think I would know this since they're my slides.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I wonder who made them, though.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. I know. Aren't they good, guys? These guys made my slides for me. This is my whole, I have a whole online program, and they did all this for me. It's like awesome. Anyway.
Which will
We'll definitely let them know how they can go and see that as well.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I'm excited about that, but I mean, even just to see a little bit of it. It looks awesome. They did a great job at this. I'm so proud of it. People tell me all the time how much they love it. Okay, so how do you get there? Well, the 4 C's that are going to make you successful in marketing or building your business through selling it. The first thing is you've got to be comfortable with change. You've got to change the way you do it. You know, I can tell you from experience that, you know, I know over the years, as probably every woman out there struggles with their weight, and everybody says you've got to change your eating habits as opposed to go on a diet. That's what this is about. It's about making changes in the way you do things, and that's not comfortable, and it's not fun, and it's one of those things that you have to do over and over to create habits. If you don't create habits, you're going to go back to the way you did things before. So the first C is you've got to be comfortable with changing the way you're doing it if it's not working. The second one, you've got to be in control of your process. It's your business. You've got to be in control of how you're running your business. Now, I haven't seen all of your websites, but I'm going to guess that none of you out there have a website called abccompany.org. You need to be in control of your business because it's your business. So using this process, or whatever process that you use if it works for you, you have to be in control of that process. And if somebody is not working along with you, then they demand you to do things different than you're comfortable with, then you're going to lose control. And when you lose control, you're probably going to lose the business. The third piece is coaching. You know, it is very, very important to have a coach. Tiger Woods, no matter what he's done recently, is still the best golfer in the world. And Tiger Woods has 5 coaches. He has a pitching coach. He has a driving coach. He has a fitness coach. Probably right now he has a public relations coach. I don't know. But he has 5 coaches. You need a coach. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how long you've been in whatever business you're in. If you need somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in your business, who doesn't love you, who isn't your partner, who you don't pay as an employee to be able to tell you what you need to do. You have obviously engaged Upside Down Iceberg to do that. They coach me on lots of things. I mean, I've helped them with the sales stuff, but I got to tell you, these guys are damn good. So remember to listen to what they say. And even if you aren't comfortable with it, when you hear a coach say something, you have to at least give it a good try. So that's extremely important. And the 4th thing is commitment. You have to be committed to change, to be in control, to let somebody coach you. You have to be committed to doing it. Because if you're committed for a week and you go back to the way you're doing it, then the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, and that's what you'll get. So these 4 C's will get you better at what it is that you do.
Cool.
So, yeah.
That's very good. And yeah, we do have the ability to open it up if you have just a couple minutes. I don't. If anyone out there has a question, you can push the raise hand button on your control panel that should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and we can open it up one at a time to for Greta to be able to answer questions. Let me look here real quick. I have to kind of scroll up and down to see.
Greta, they want to get your book. What do they go? Amazon? Available?
Yeah, my book is on Amazon. It's called To Sell Is Not to Sell. It's on Amazon. If you can look it up by that, or Greta Schulz, you can look it up by my name. Or you can go on my website and get it. Either way.
What is your website?
Website is schulzbusiness.com. That's SCHULZ business.com. You can go there. Or you can go to B2B salesplaybook.com, either one. The program that we're talking about here is the B2B salesplaybook.com, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not positive you can buy the book from that one. I think you have to get it from my main website. I should know that, but I don't. So yeah, but Amazon's fine as well.
And when you say to sell is not to sell, one of the things that I remember the first time I met Greta, and I asked her, so what is it that you do? And she said,
I help salespeople stop selling.
And I was like, why would you do that? Why would you help salespeople stop selling? Right. And the thing is that the more you sell, the less you make, and the less you sell, the more you make. So it was one of the things that, because whenever I first left the power company and started in my coaching business, I struggled. I mean, I struggled big time because I had sold multi-million-dollar generator jobs. I thought I knew how to sell stuff. And I remember the first time I met Greta telling her all about all the stuff I had sold, and she just smiled and nodded her head. And then within about a week or two later, I was at her door going, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? So
it's real easy when they need power.
Yeah. When they don't have a choice, it's easy to sell them stuff. So
yeah, right.
That was the thing that I mean. And since then, all of the stuff that we talk about, all of this came from Greta. And Greta's the comments. I don't know if you can see them. Are thanks, great training. Thank you guys, and Greta, another awesome webinar. What that tells me is that you covered everything so wonderfully excellent that
I throw a couple things out there.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad I asked you. I know the answer, so I'm just going to go do that.
As if we could stop you, Eric.
Yeah, I could hit the button.
You mentioned that when you at your networking events, when people come up to you and we have such an interesting product, Greta, that when sometimes we're at networking events and people at those events want to hear more about what we have, and sometimes they say that they're interested right there. What do you suggest at that point? Go into how do you go and find out more about their business when they seem so interested in yours?
Yeah. That's a great question, and certainly in your businesses that's going to happen. When somebody hears what you do, they are very curious and say, well, what do you do? What do you help people do? And, do you help them online? Do you do it for them? They're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. What you want to say is, there's a variety of things that we do, and we can help people in a lot of different ways. Tell me a little bit about your business and what you do to market now. So you want to flip that back to them and get them talking, because you never want to get in a position where you're giving away your information. Plus, if you don't learn about what's important to them, you could be telling them something that you do, and they might walk away and go, oh, okay, but really it was something else that they wanted, and you may very well do that too, but they won't learn unless you ask them that. So you need to flip that question back and ask them a little bit about them first.
Well, one of the things I mentioned when we mentioned the pre-qualification phone call, I know that Jody loves this and does this a lot. Can you give us a quick, maybe how you would do that if I was calling and said, or if I wanted to meet with you, or Jody, better, one of you two, if you want to meet, said, hey, had an appointment set. How would you qualify?
Well, okay, so what you're asking about pre-qualification, so if somebody said, okay, let's say somebody called me because somebody referred, let's say, just for argument's sake, Eric recommended somebody call me. So they call me up and they say, I talked to Eric Current. He said that I should talk to you because my company or my business or myself, I need some sales training. So what do you do and how do you do it and what does it cost? Okay? That's usually how those conversations go. And what I'll say is, well, you know, there's a lot of different directions that we can go here, and if I could answer that in one quick sweep, that would make life easier. But everything we do is somewhat customized, and in your businesses, guys, it absolutely is. So and everything we do is somewhat customized. So what I'd like to do is ask you a few questions first about what prompted the call, what you talked to Eric about, a little bit about what you're doing now when it comes to marketing your business. I know you'll have some calls for me. Some questions for me about how I might be able to help. At the end of our few minutes, we'll discover one of two things. We're going to either discover, number one, that what you're looking for and what I do, even though Eric recommended you, maybe it isn't a fit for your business, and that's okay. You know, what we do isn't for everyone. Or we will discover that what you need is something I can help you with, and then we'll make a decision on what our next step is. But either way is fine. How does that sound? So you want to start out that way, and then you can ask your questions. It's very important to kind of set the stage that way and to start out, because you need to flip those things around, or you'll get caught in the mode of telling, and you don't want to be there.
Perfect. So let me ask you, are there such a thing as a born salesperson, or some people are, some people aren't? What is your opinion on this?
Actually, my opinion is there are people that are born with some characteristics I think that may help, but I will tell you there's three things that make people successful in marketing or selling their business. There's only three. I wish there were more. I would charge a lot more. There's only three. First one, the most important one, and you have to have straight A's, by the way. The first A is attitude. If you have to have a positive attitude about yourself, about your business, about what you're doing, if you have to be passionate about what you do, then you have to have belief in yourself and in your market and in your product or your service. I mean, that's number one. If somebody has a positive attitude and is not an excuse maker, then every time they fail, they'll understand that that's a learning process and get right back up. So that's number one. The second thing that makes you successful in sales is activities. Remember that prospecting piece we talked about? Yep. What are the activities that you do every day, every week, every month? What are those things? And you have to figure those out, and you have to follow those. So I don't care how good you are in sales. You can be a born salesman, and if you're sitting home eating bonbons, you ain't going to make any money. So the second most important thing is what are the activities you're doing on a regular basis, and how are you tracking them? The third thing is approach. What do you say and what do you do when you get in front of somebody? How do you handle that? And that's the rest of the process that we talked about. So those three things are what makes somebody successful. I truly don't believe that people are born salesmen. What usually happens if somebody says, oh, he's a born salesman, is he's a big talker. And sales isn't about talking, it's about listening. Probably the best salespeople out there are people have a really good ability to listen and not talk so much. So when people say you're a natural born salesman, or if somebody says I'm a real people person, good for you. Go into social work. That's not what this is about. It's about listening and matching what they want and what they need to what you have, and that's it.
Yeah, Greta, one of the things that everybody that's on the call has is we have this great system called Monster Follow-Up that we're able to use and we're able to to do things with. One of the things that they have as part of Monster Follow-Up is a free DISC personality assessment. Now, what would you say if people had that available to them for free? What does that normally cost someone? If somebody came to you and said, Greta, I'm really interested in your training, and one of the things that is part of that, if they had to pay you to do a DISC assessment, what would that cost?
Well, damn, guys, I didn't know you had that for free. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Well, it depends if they're a client or not, but it's between $50 and $150. So it depends on if they're a client, how many, if there is some, but it certainly is a minimum of $50 per DISC assessment, and sometimes it's $150 depending on, if there's some other things they need behind it. So, wow, I'd like to know where I can get that for free.
Yeah, I'll show you that.
That would be good.
And what is that for someone who says, what is that? What is a DISC assessment for people who didn't get that deep into their Monster Follow-Up?
Okay, so the DISC assessment is an assessment on, the way you assess it is you're assessing yourself first, and it tells you what your personality style is, what your tendencies are, what you're like under pressure, what you tend to do, what your pluses are, the things you have to watch. It also helps you understand and read what different personalities of different people are and how to address them differently. For example, if somebody is a real detailed person and they like things given to them very detailed, you have to learn that and be able to recognize it, and you have to be able to mirror that. If you don't, then you are going to be out of sync with their behavior style, their personality style, and no matter what you say, they don't feel in sync with you, because 97% of communication is nonverbal. So it's addressing some of those other things as opposed to the words that you say. So it's truly understanding the foundation of how people make decisions, how they like to be dealt with, how they like to be presented to, those kinds of things.
Right. So would you recommend that everyone who has access to that go immediately and take advantage of it because it's free? And even if it wasn't free, it's still valuable. But I mean,
no, I think they should go to my website and pay me and do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go to Greta's website and go. It's $150.
Right. Or go into your Monster Follow-Up account and push the button and get it for free. So
yeah, no, I do recommend everything. Actually, not only do I recommend doing it, you will really, really enjoy getting that report back, because it's depending on which report it is, it could be between 15 and 25 pages, all about you. So it's really very interesting. You'll enjoy it if you do it.
Right, and you may have done personality tests in the past. The DISC assessment it's scientifically proven, and once you see it and you start to understand the different aspects of the test, it just really kind of opens your eyes as to who people are, and then it kind of helps you also understand, wow, so that's why they're like that, and it gives you that. So I would definitely recommend that everyone go and do that as quickly as they can if they haven't yet.
And someone's putting on the questions, where is that located? In which case, why don't we go through that on the Monster Follow-Up section, which I believe is next week?
Yes, well, we'll do that, and I will also. I see who that person is. I will get with them in the next day or so, or they got my cell phone. They can give me a call, and I'll show you exactly where it is. Once I go in, I actually haven't done it in Monster Follow-Up because I did it with Greta about 4 years ago. So I'll go in, find it, and then I will put together exactly how to go do that, because I don't think that Monster Follow-Up people actually quite understand it yet. So
right.
We'll get that done.
Let's run an assessment through the Monster Follow-Up. So I have a question really for Jody. Why was it important for us to really start last week with how to get started right away and start making money, and this week with sales? Why do you feel those are the most important things to start with?
Because those are the
coaching program.
Because those are the things that are because once you go out and you're able to get started right away and you're able to get that business going, that's what's going to continue to keep you going. If you take too much time getting ready, that's all you're going to spend your time doing is getting ready, or if you're waiting around. And we did some of that ourselves. So the reason that we're starting with these two pieces, and we're so fortunate, Greta, to have you on here, and we appreciate so much you being able to be here, is the fact that we want to help you not make some of the mistakes that we did and not hit some of the same stumbling blocks that we had right out of the gate. Because what we can do is we can take the things that we've done and help you circumvent that so that you can get success much quicker, and give you the tools that will help you do that. That's why these are the two most important things. What can you go to make money with right away? And I think we've given you some great tools to do that. And then whenever you do go out there and you start talking to people, how do you phrase it? How do you do it so that you come across as a competent professional? You're coming from a consultative sales role, and then you also know how to frame it and bring it to fruition and close the business. Because without those two pieces, you can work on all kind of goal setting all you want to, but without those first two pieces, that's what's going to be critical for your success. So was that the answer you were looking for?
That's the answer I'm looking for. And Greta, what would you say to some people? I know that there's people on the call that are deciding whether they should go forward with our coaching program. What would you suggest to those people?
Well, what I would say is, if you already understand how to do this business and you have a plan and you followed it and it's already working exactly the way you want, you're hitting all your goals, then don't. In any other case, you need to have a coach. Whatever it is that you're doing, I don't care who you are, you have to have a coach. And, you know, just to give a plug to these guys, I mean, let me tell you a little bit about this, okay? I know some of you are on the West Coast and it's like 5, 6 o'clock there. It's 9 o'clock here. I don't do 9 o'clock. But when they asked me to do this, I would do anything for them, because not only have they been a part of my program, I've been a part of theirs, and they've helped make my business successful in a lot of ways. And believe me, social media is something that I know nothing about. I mean, I have a 12 o'clock blinking VCR. I mean, I don't know anything. I barely know how to touch a computer, okay? And they've taught me an unbelievable amount of things. So I think if you don't do it, you're crazy. That's all I'm saying.
Very good.
First of all, thank you so much, Greta. First of all, we thank you for that. That was really brief. And we appreciate you being on the call, and we really appreciate your time.
You are very welcome.
And where are you going to be at 11 o'clock tomorrow?
I am going to be in your office doing some more filming for the next step of my playbook.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. What is it? The playoff series?
Yeah, but I got to Greta's credit, I have to say, she is the only client that we've ever had that I can just put her in a room and start, as you've seen the way she is on this webinar. I didn't practice this. I called Greta. I talked to her for 10 minutes before we started this. These are slides that she used on her overview from the videos that we put together. She walks in the door. She has her stuff ready to go. I go in there and push the start button on the camera, and I leave. And she talks for like 30 minutes and has a whole segment put together. And
you don't have to edit.
She doesn't mess up in the middle. You don't have to cut anything. It's just you take it, you put a beginning, and you put an end. And I should shut up now because she'll say, well, why the hell you charge me so much? But anyway. But she is, yeah, that's what I was afraid. Okay, I'm shutting up now. But yeah, but it's truly a pleasure. I feel blessed to have met you and to have been trained by you, and also now have you as a friend and a client, and we appreciate you being on the call. I'm sure that the people that are on here have gotten great value from the information that you were able to share, and I can't say thank you enough.
Well, I sure hope everybody has, and since you're clients of Upside Down Iceberg, if you do have a question, my email is greta@b2bsalesplaybook.com, greta@b2bsalesplaybook.com. If you send me a question after you get off here, no problem at all, I'll help you. Do not spread that around. I do not do that with everyone unless they're a client, but I certainly will if you have a question when you get off.
And that's the letter B, the number 2, letter B, salesplaybook.com. So it's B,
Correct.
number 2B.
Correct.
And I know there's a couple people that are deciding if they want to move forward in this program. If so, you can call us. I'll give you Jody's phone number. No, I had to do that. So was it 561? No, if they want, they can call us 561-202-6686.
No, 6676.
That was Seth's number. Sorry,
yeah.
6676.
All right.
561-202-6676. Jody's going to punch that in the answers over there. I can't, or else the screen will go a different color.
Right. And the other thing is, We will be switching to a new system next week. We have found one that does allow streaming video, which is very important for a lot of the stuff. A lot of the stuff that we're going to be sharing with you and showing you how to do when it comes to the video editing and the stuff that we do. So that we'll be sending out. It'll probably, hopefully by Friday, we'll have everything set up, so you'll have it in plenty of time before next week's webinar. It's going to, with the new system and all the login information for. So that we can stream the video, not only play video, but also show you our screens in real time without all the jerky stuff going on, so that it's a lot more fluid. Because one of the things we know is that nothing's more frustrating than watch things happen in a delayed time sequence. So we're working with a new company. It's quite a bit more than what we were working with GoToWebinar, but we feel it's worth it in order to be able to deliver the quality content to you so that you're able to take this and use it immediately. And we'll even be able to do some sharing and teaching with our private coaching clients, sharing the screens back and forth and actually helping you go through some stuff in real time. So we're real excited about that, and we'll have all that information put together and get it out to you probably by Friday so that we have that ready to go. And with that, I think we pretty much covered everything. We appreciate that. Once again,
thank you very much, Greta. Thank you, and we will see you guys next week.
And if you have anything before that, you've got my email, you've got the phone number now. Give us a shout, send us an email. We're more than happy to help with anything that we can. Have a great rest of the week, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greta.
Bye.
Bye.